Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'm going to give everybody just a couple of minutes to jump on. So I want to go over a couple of things, just some opportunities for those of you that are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I want to travel outside of DFW to Dallas-Fort Worth for two fantastic charitable events. Um, we are having our Honor Foundation golf tournament on April 3rd at Denton Country Club. So still looking for sponsors, still looking for teams. So it's going to be great. Honor Foundation, obviously, if you've watched any of my videos on that, we help special operations members, not just operators, but their support staff, with career transition. So we're going to have a tournament here. We're going to have some special guests. Some Honor Foundation guys are going to be here. Kind of our MC is a retired 160th SOAR pilot. He's going to be here to kind of MC it and shake hands and things like that. So we get a chance to talk to some of those guys. But it's a great opportunity. We're going to do it at Denton Country Club, which they've donated their facility to us. So all of the proceeds are going to go back to THF. We are not going to collect anything, take anything, nothing. So it's going to be a good thing. Max, good to see you, buddy. But the other is our annual boot shoot event at Dallas Gun Club. And it's going to be fantastic. It's April 13th. And if you have not been to boot shoot, if you want to shoot clays, come out and hang out with some veteran supporters, their families, and eat some good food, shoot some guns, raise some money for brain treatment and a couple of other charities that we donate back to through the Valor Fund, which is our 501c3 that Benchmark created. It's going to be fantastic if you want some information. I posted some things in the group, but if you want some things in there, I will get you some information about that. But we are, a few minutes in. So today we're going to talk about occupancy. Occupancy is, especially as it relates to active military, can be an interesting subject. It can also be a subject where people can get their what's in a sling if they don't ask the right questions, because there are all kinds of scenarios that the government will throw at you with these military families. And we'll go over a lot of those today. Some of them, if you've got questions, please post it in here. I will respond. If you've got a scenario, please add it. This is a learning environment, and not just for me, but there are a lot of intelligent people who have experienced a lot of things in this group that hopefully will be watching this that can add in there. But mostly, if you have questions, anything like that, please post it in the chat, and I promise you that I will get to it. So let me add the screen in here. So I'm hosting this on StreamYard through their webinar service, which I've never used before. So hopefully everything goes well. But we're going to add this to the stream. So occupancy, we're going to go over some scenarios as it relates for veterans and active military. Okay. So, because there are two different things, the VA views that in a couple of different manners. It's very lenient, but what you will hear a lot from loan officers and real estate agents is that 60-day occupancy rule is a steadfast rule. Okay. I won't say that it's not a steadfast rule, but there are exceptions to that 60-day process. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but we'll talk about occupancy. Oddly enough, I still have gotten fielded questions from agents and veterans and military members about occupancy and about buying homes for investment properties, or trying to circumvent the system or tarnish the intent of the rule as it relates to you've got to live in the house for 12 months. You can't buy as an investment property. That is not the intent of the VA home loan. Okay. Now, can people use it like that under the umbrella of those guidelines? Yes, 100%. But what you cannot do is look like you're trying to circumvent the occupancy rules. Okay, the VA will come down on you like a ton of what. There are lenders out there who will do it. I'm not saying there won't. I will not. I'm not going to put myself, my company, my underwriters, or the veteran for that matter in that position. So now that we got that out of the way. All right, so let's talk about occupancy a little bit. The VA is very specific on this. You have to occupy the house, right? And we're going to talk about some nuances about that occupancy as it relates to who can occupy to satisfy the VA. Okay. So there is a 12-month rule, like you have to live in the house. You have to personally live in the property as his or her home. Okay. It's not that complicated, frankly. You have to move into it. We're going to talk about a few nuances as it relates to when you can, some things that'll delay that occupancy, especially as it's very popular now to rehab houses and do upgrades, or if there's an issue that won't allow occupancy, what that looks like. Okay. 60 days is considered reasonable. Okay. But you can go beyond that 60 days if these following conditions are met. I'm not going to read this to you because it'll bore the shit out of you. But what we have to know is that they're going to personally occupy the home, and is there going to be an event that will allow them to personally occupy the home. Okay. So while I'm at it, if you're watching this, tell me where you're from. So I'm going to talk about some things maybe specific to you guys, and where your location is too, because there are some locale things on there. So tell me where you're from. Give me the city where you're at, where you're watching from. So, so let's talk about this scenario. And I have this scenario right now. We got a guy that is, there's Brian Elkins from Columbus, Georgia. Thank you, sir. If you are going, I've got this situation now. We use Brian as an example. They're going from Fort Benning to Bliss. Let's say they're going to go they're single. Okay. But the government is going to send them on a temporary duty assignment before they hit their duty station in Fort Bliss. Now, let's say that they're closing in February. Orders aren't till May. They're going to have a 60-day or so assignment. Welcome from my hometown of Oklahoma City. They're going to have a 60-day assignment in between that. So what we have to look at, and what we have to look at as a lender is, okay, we have a future date, right? We have orders that will send him to X or her to X in this place. Oh, Danny Wilson. Yeah. Throwing the Houston digs in there from your world champion Astros. Well done, sir. But let's say that they're going to go on to school. So we have a defined date, but what we also have to consider in that time frame is possible living expenses, right? Or where are they going to be on this temporary duty assignment or a TDY assignment? Where are they going to go, right? If they've got to go to school, especially special operators, they will go to jump school and Sears school and cold weather and all these different things before they get to their end destination. Well, we have to consider what that's going to look like, where they're going to be. Now, temporary duty assignments typically don't have those costs incurred, but we have to ask that question because it is a valid question and can derail your deal. But the VA is lenient on that. As long as we have a future defined date, you can exceed that 60-day time frame. Now, and it says specifically down here, right from the handbook, cost of maintaining separate living arrangements. Okay. So, but here's one of the great things about the VA home loan is the spouse or dependent child can satisfy that occupancy. Okay. It doesn't have to be the military member or the veteran specifically. So if the wife is going to go ahead of the service member, if they're going to go on a temporary duty assignment and satisfy that occupancy, then we've checked the occupancy box, but we still have to figure out what if that person's going to incur any other expenses while they're on that temporary duty assignment. Okay. We've had situations where we've had a grandparent keeping a child from a deployed service member. Okay. Not married, got single mom, single dad, grandparent is doing that. Well, the service member wanted to buy a home at their duty station. Well, the grandparent would take the dependent child and satisfy that occupancy, that 60 days. So there's a lot of check boxes you can think. It's not just a military member and it's not 60 days. So don't ever limit yourself to that. Have the conversation with them. If your loan officer is good at what they do, they will have the conversation with them or have a process in place to ask these questions. We try to set that up, during our pre-approval process. So it is very important that you have those conversations. And I'm going to give you an example of this, not counting the maintaining the separate living arrangements, or what we have to look at for trailing spouse income. Okay. So if the family is moving to the new duty station and both are employed, and you don't ask if the job for the spouse, which is a civilian job, is going to continue, you're going to end up in a bad way. Not to say that the military member can't qualify for everything on their own, but if they're going to have a rental where they stay before the spouse gets there and the spouse isn't going to work, well, you've taken away income and added debt. And we just had the situation in El Paso where that happened. They didn't ask the spouse if the job was going to continue. The deal blows up at the 11th hour. Okay, that's a bad thing, especially when people are dependent on housing, and base housing is in a shortage, and base housing really kind of sucks. So it is very important that in your buyer consults, I'm going to give you a coach today for all the agents that are listening. If you have active military, put some extra verbiage, extra questions in your consult when you're having this from buyers, because if you don't, hopefully your LO asks, but if they are somebody who came with their own LO from one of these companies that we don't like, chances are they probably didn't ask, and you're going to have to cover your own hiney in that instance. Okay. Let's see. So we got spouse, got that. So in a veteran situation, when you're talking about delayed occupancy, it's a little bit different. Okay. We have to make sure that it makes sense. Okay. So veteran and active military, when it comes to this occupancy requirement, are a little bit different. So we still have to count debts and look at things like that. But, there are situations where we have to reach out to the RLC to get their confirmation that we can even do it. Okay. And you can read this on the screen. It says that exactly thing in the guidelines. Okay. So just be aware of those things. Make sure that you understand the story, and then you ask to tell them to tell you the story so you can make it make sense. If you don't know, you can relate on to your underwriter, whatever that looks like. Okay. All right. Deployed. So if somebody's deployed, that is considered a temporary duty status. So if they are deployed, they could go up to 12 months. Now that's a stretch, right? But still is doable as long as you detail everything. Make sure that you detail all of it. Make sure that you're asking the right questions. So 12 months is even viable for somebody's deployed, because it's considered a temporary duty status, and they can buy a home at that, at their location, even if they occupy 8 months from now. Okay. But it better be documented. Orders, where they're going back, questions, everything documented on that loan analysis, because you can get yourself in a pickle if you don't. Okay. Anything past 12 months is just not sufficient. It's not going to work. Okay. Home improvements. So there are times where you're doing VA renovation loans, or there is something that is done for an escrow holdback. Let's say there's a plumbing issue and it's got to be done from the main to the house, and the house is not habitable because you can't go to the bathroom. And that could take 90 days. Well, what your lender should be doing is obviously documenting that, getting bid requirements, all those things, so we can show when that occupancy is going to take place, because escrow holdbacks are a thing. Obviously, the VA renovation loan has made a comeback. So you're going to need to still figure out how quick it can be done, what the extent of the repair is, and all of those things there. So you better document. So you cannot over document when it comes to those things, because you're going to have to get bids. You're going to have to get timeframes on those bids. And then the company, or whoever, somebody designated there, is going to have to follow up with that to see how the progress is going, because the loan guarantee certificate cannot be issued until that stuff is done. Okay. There are people out there who are getting themselves in a pickle with the VA because they weren't issuing some of these LGCs for 12 to 18 months. That ain't going to work. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Okay. So you can do it. Just document it, bids, timeframes, extent of the construction, and so on. Intermittent occupancy is a very real topic for those who, especially are contractors. How much time are they spending in the home? What are they doing when they're away, right? Are they on a job assignment or do they have another home? A lot of people try to stretch that rule using that. My opinion is that this is expats who are working, out of the country, those that are government contractors. This is where this rule applies, because sometimes they're 6 months on, 6 months off, 3, 4, and all points in between. So make sure that you're getting detailed information on duty, on what their job description details, how far they have to go from to get, on that particular assignment, because it can, again, if those things are uncovered in your process and you can't document it, you're going to end up putting that veteran in a very bad spot. Okay. Or your company for that matter. Okay. But it's a good rule to have because obviously we know a lot of government employees that are military go into the contracting business, and this is typically what happens to them. Okay. One of the big things on this bullet point too, and I want to make sure of this, that you see this, number one, is that residents of the community, right? If you're buying a house and it's intermittent occupancy and you have no ties to that community whatsoever, you're going to have a hard time proving that occupancy status. Now, if it's where they're from, where they retired from the military or got out of the military, and that's one thing. But if they can't prove ties to the community or where they want to try to buy, you're going to have a hard time proving that occupancy status. Okay. All right, on EARLs, and the reason why I put this in here is because rates are going to continue to drop. And this is a great tactic and a great strategy for my real estate agents. They're going to watch this. What you need to know about the EARL, and what I would highly encourage you to do, is create a campaign, whether it's in your CRM, whether it's a phone call, text campaign to previous VA clients, because here is what is going to happen. Once these rates start to dip, every vulture real estate company or lender is going to be reaching out to your clients, telling them that the rates have dropped. I can get you 2% on a VA refinance. And then they're going to say, oh, you don't want to refi, you're looking to move? Well, let me get you with an agent that I do business with, or Veterans United Realty, or something crazy like that, with these turds who can't really help them or don't know how to help them properly. So the key to all of this is protect your database. Okay. I'm creating an EARL campaign for our CRM. I'm also going to be reaching out to clients, but here's what you need to teach them. It's not like, okay, hey, the rates are dropping. How do we protect you? How are we protecting you with all of the nonsense that you're going to get sent to you through the mail, through emails, they're even going as far as to sending them things in the mail with like my company logo on it. Okay. You cannot do that, number one, but they do it anyway because nobody's going to turn them in. And the reality of it. So a good strategy for your clients and your current database for the VA clients that you've helped here in the next, my opinion, 60 days, I would start reaching out to them and just keep up with them because of the VA EARL. Because here's the thing, guys, you're not going to do the EARL, but if you have a trusted lender that you're going to help them, send them to, if it's me, whatever it is, I'm not going to poach your client. If they're looking to sell, I'm going to refer them back to you. Somebody else may not be so nice. And the other thing about this, and the second most important thing, is that as an agent, if you're starting this strategy, that buyer knows you get absolutely nothing out of them lowering their interest rate. But what you're doing is adding value with no expectation of anything in return and creating a bond, in my opinion, that's hard to be broken. Okay. So we can talk about that more in depth, but this is a good thing for occupancy on the EARL. You do not have to own or occupy the property. All you have to certify is that you once occupied it as your primary residence. So if they've moved as a veteran, if they PCS'd as a military client, retain that property, they can still take advantage of the VA EARL. It's a huge, huge benefit. Okay. And another great thing to reach out to your past clients about. Okay. So let's talk about a couple of other scenarios that I've run into here lately. So what if they don't have actual hard orders? Okay. Let's say they're moving ahead of time. They're trying to get ahead of the buying season, whatever it is. I'm not saying all lenders do this. I have used this before, but not all lenders are going to accept it. And this is not something they have to do. Okay. This is a good conversation with your underwriter or whoever the powers that be to see if they can use this. Because let's face it, we don't always get what we want, but we got to make sure we're setting the veteran up for success and where they're going. Okay. So if that veteran does not have hard orders, maybe you can get a command letter stating that they're going to be PCSing here, but the orders have not been cut. Well, let's go so far as to say maybe that person works in naval special warfare. Maybe the orders aren't out yet. And maybe his command is like, we're not giving you squat. But we have some officially unofficial things that we can use to create that warm and fuzzy. Because look, SEALs can only go two places. They can go to Virginia Beach or really, or San Diego. Okay. Unless they're deployed or whatever that is. But you got to think outside the box, right? And the most important thing, and for my loan officers who are watching this is not a situation where you can just beat your underwriter over the head with it and say, you have to do this. What you have to do is have a conversation with them and lead them across the aisle to get what you want. If you can come to the conclusion that it's in the best interest of the veteran and you satisfied the VA, do it. Okay. If you can't, don't. It's as simple and as complicated as that. So, but you're going to run into those things. Okay. So some takeaways. Make sure you adapt your buyer consult for your veteran buyers. Okay. Especially when you're talking about, are you going to be present for closing and things that are going to jeopardize your closing? Okay. When you have to set up mobile notaries, POAs, and not at the 11th hour where it turns into a dumpster fire, do it in your buyer consult. That way you can get ahead of it. But make sure you understand the occupancy. Ask the questions. Are you going to occupy? When are you going to occupy? Do you have a spouse or dependent? And that way it'll trigger the conversation, hopefully, that your loan officer will have, but you can set yourself up as the subject matter expert. Like, this person really knows what they're talking about, because it'll take some of the stress out of their process, but will also make you look better in their eyes. And you're trying to build that relationship. Okay. That is all I have on the occupancy thing. If there are specific questions you have or anything you want to add, put it in the post in the group. Shoot me a message directly. What I prefer you to do is ask it in the group. So there's a lot of high-powered people in there who can answer, and that way people can learn. Because if you send me a direct message, I'm going to copy and paste it in the group. Okay. So make sure you do that. If I can help you with anything, please reach out to me and let me know. This will be saved in the group, so if you missed it, you can rewatch it. I also have the recording that I can send you the link to. It will be downloaded. I'm going to host it on a YouTube channel, all those things. So if anybody wants to see it, they can. But I'm here to help. Get out there, help some vets, lead the charge with the VA home loan benefit, because the minute you think that everybody's heard what you have to say, right? I'm tired of repeating myself, that whole thing. The bad guys win. So remember that. Have a great day. We'll see you guys soon.